Welcome back to the Built from Love podcast. My name is Erin Pratt, and I am so excited today to have the most amazing guest on. Leah Boden is here to talk to us all about the Charlotte Mason philosophy of education, her journey with it, and so much inspiration that she provides to women all over the world. She is an author of Modern Miss Mason, which is how I found her, which I'll talk about. She also has written the Tales of Boldness and Faith. She is a mother of four children. She's a speaker, has a beautiful Substack. I love getting her emails and a wonderful membership for women that called the Mind Gallery and just does so much to inspire women all over the world. Leah, thank you so much for being here.
Erin, thank you for that lovely introduction and for inviting me. I'm so glad I finally spotted your email, your invitation, and it is really good to be with you.
Awesome. Oh, I'm so glad too. It was always makes me jump for joy when I see your name in my inbox.
Oh,
So, yeah, thank you so much for being here, Leah. And I would love for you to just briefly introduce yourself, and I'd love for you to focus on Charlotte Mason, what drew you to her philosophy of education, a little bit about how you first approached Charlotte Mason, and just kind of how she's shaped your life, your motherhood journey, and your creative work.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot there. We could talk for an hour just on those few points there. But home education isn't as developed here in the UK as you will find in the US. So we're probably 20 years behind. Um, just the understanding, the acceptance, even though I know a lot of home educators think it's still not very accepted. But we're really a little bit behind with that. So when we started investigating home education in the early 2000s, I knew one other family in the whole country who did it. I didn't have, I'd spent a year in the States on a discipleship program following graduation and from university. And I discovered these kids who were homeschooled and found them fascinating and so engaging. And a little seed was sown there of what is this? And I wonder if this is something that is legal and that people do in the UK. So roll on, we started our family. We'd enrolled Naya, our eldest daughter, into the local primary school or the local nursery. And suddenly there was this realization, and I tell this story at the beginning of Modern Miss Mason, of I did not want to do this. This is not the path I really wanted to go on. Obviously, then I had to bring my husband on board. Like, oh, have I ever told you? And so that began this incredible journey for both of us, where God did a deep work in us about really getting not just a kind of a conviction around education, but a vision for our family. And that is this the stronger your foundation in those beginning places. And I know it's for some people, they are brought into homeschooling and home education because of something that's happened to their child. And that's really sad. And I feel for those families. But for many, they have this growing conviction when they're pregnant or they've got friends who are doing it. And especially more now where we've got a couple of decades under our belt here in the UK. And so we had what we began, the foundation of our home education was a vision for family. What does this look like? How do we see our 16, 17, 18-year-olds? What do we want to see for their lives? How do we start that when they're 2 and 3 and 4? And so Dave and I, went on this journey together, and very early in my research phase, and I'm a big researcher, and we didn't have Instagram. We didn't have, all the depths, well, the kind of in your face information that we do now. I just did a little bit of, I don't know what it was, probably Ask Jeeves or Google. I don't know what the demographic of your crowd is, but I'm probably aging myself massively. Um, and I discovered, and I was looking for a UK, influence. I was looking for something that was UK based and came across Charlotte Mason. Obviously, everything I found was written by Americans, which was ironic. Yeah, it's like, why? Hang on, she's this British revolutionary educator, but it's because, thank God for, entrepreneurial forerunning American home educators who kind of brought her educational ideas back to the forefront of our minds. And then us Brits could reclaim her and then but run
Yeah.
together with her philosophy.
Yeah.
So basically, I discovered her work, and I often say I jumped down that rabbit hole, and I have never come back up. And what resonated for me,
Mm.
Erin, was that she, I was born in the mid 1970s, and at that point in England, we had tiny trickles of influence of some of that stuff. So we had a nature corner. We had a reading corner. We had a nature table, sorry, where we bring things from outside into the classroom to look at. We had a reading corner. We'd do lots of trips outside and go for nature walks. And these things, there was lots of discussion in our learning, and these things were still part very in a very small way. We had an assembly every morning where we'd listen to classical music. We'd sing hymns together. These little tiny things were starting to be diluted, but were part of the early formation of my education. And as soon as I began to read about Charlotte Mason, it just had the echoes of my, being 6 and 7 years old. And what's interesting is when I talked to my father, who is in his early 70s, he remembers being at school and having art on the walls to look at and listening to classical music and reading Shakespeare and poetry and Plutarch. And so you can see how it has been slowly diluted, and the national education system as it is now, a bit like Common Core in the US, is very, very different, isn't it? So there we were with a young family, and I basically just absolutely loved her approach to childhood and education. How not just what to do with children, but how we see them in the image of God, and how we see ourselves, and how we get to present to them this incredibly wide feast at the right time, at the right stage. And through that, it kind of opens up these doors to knowledge that actually connect with who God has made them to be. So I call it this front row seat on the great unveiling of our children. We
I
actually
love
get
that.
to set up the atmosphere and set up their environment, which then says, okay, now show me who you are. Let's introduce you to these stories, these people, this music, this poetry, this great outdoors, the God who created it, and let's see what it brings out in you. And that is amazing. That is a whole, I mean, it's a lifetime of discovery. And as you will know from my Mind Gallery emails, that is my continued journey. That is my mission, is that it's not just for children, it's for everyone. And my particular passion is to help women connect with that forever, for the rest of their lives.
Oh, Leah, it's beautiful. Yeah, you said so many, just so much that resonates. And I know I read Modern Miss Mason about, I want to say it was 2 years ago when my oldest daughter was 3. And I really hadn't considered homeschooling when she was born. It wasn't something that was kind of on the forefront. She was born in 2020, May 2020. So we were just in the midst
Oh,
of the
bless you.
COVID pandemic.
Yes,
Um,
quite
so
the
I,
time.
yes, it was a wild time to be start motherhood, but it was also in some ways it was reshaping what education was looking like for so many families who decided, after that point to pursue alternative methods of education. They saw
Right.
kind of what was happening in the schools because it was now brought to their dining tables on a screen, and they were like, "Whoa, what is this?"
Yeah.
Um, and so I sort of went on this journey as she was still quite young. I had another baby as well, and I have 3 girls now. But your book, I came across your book as I was kind of looking up, different philosophies of homeschooling, and I read Wild and Free, and I kind of was
Yeah.
introduced to Charlotte Mason through that, and then I went on kind of down the same rabbit hole, and I found
Great.
Modern Miss Mason, and your book was what sold me. I mean, it transformed my homeschooling journey. I was really unsure about it until I read your book, and you made it so approachable and so appealing, just the way that you were able to, it's beyond just like what you think of school. It's a way of life, and I was like, I can do life with my girls, and it made me really excited
Yes.
the way you went along the learning journey with your children, and I'm like reinvigorated to learn alongside them and make it a whole experience in our home and an environment. I've been hanging art around, I have art
Yes.
on my desk and just all these things that
Love that.
you
Good.
influenced me so much, and it did bring back a lot from my childhood and the things that I was naturally drawn to, and kind of making that the basis of their education. So I also just want to say thank you for shaping, just our family and the journey that we're on. Um, and I wanted to talk a little bit about living books as well. You talk a lot about living books. I'd never heard that expression before until I started reading Modern Miss Mason and learning more about Charlotte Mason. So you talk about the importance of living books and why they are, I think, essential at every age, from young children. I went through our bookshelves back here and got rid of everything I considered twaddle, and just,
Great.
now when my girls go in there, they pull out things that I know are just gonna be so inspiring to both look at and feel and read. And to talk a little bit about what are living books, why are they so important at really every age?
Yeah. So Charlotte Mason, she talks about this notion of mind to mind. And this is how a book should work, that the mind of the author speaks to the mind of the child. And so this is why she talks a lot about getting out of the way. She's always saying, let the children alone. And traditional education, there's a place for it, right time, right place. And we can go into that as some, if you so wish. But especially at these young formative years, we have to get out of the way. And so Charlotte Mason says, let the mind of the author, or if we're talking wider than that, living resources, so a piece of art or a piece of music or a poem or something, but let the actual creator speak, do the intended work in the mind of the child. So a living book is, a great comparison is it's not a textbook. And so where a textbook would say, if you were learning about the country of, if you were learning about the continent of Asia, and a living a textbook would show you lots of glossy pictures of all the different countries in Asia. There would be fantastic lists and information. And I can hear some of your listeners saying, yeah, they're brilliant books. My kids love looking at those books. And yeah, absolutely. They're great for reference. They're great for kind of checking out, is this country in Asia? But what a living book would do is tell you a story about a little boy who was raised in China. And it would take you on a journey of him traveling around Asia and tasting the food and describing the colors and describing what he's wearing and the interactions he's having, and maybe set in a certain period of time in Asia and something's going on. And so there's this full immersion of almost feeling like you're there with this character. This is just a small example of a living book. And so what happens is you're invited into the story rather than being a bystander and just reading interesting lists and facts and saying, yes, I know a few things about Asia. You're actually invited in to this story, into this moment, into this time in history, into this culture where the child then feels like they are a part of it, or they get to tell you back then what they remember and what they loved and what they engaged in. And there are many, many, many books like that, where it's not just about information, it's about shared knowledge. So, you imagine another example is people say the best way to learn a language is to go and live in the country, go that full immersion. You can learn French. You could do Rosetta Stone. You could do, Duolingo, all you like. But to actually spend a year in Paris or in the south of France, you are immersed in the language. You have to speak it. And this is what a living book is like. You are immersed in the language of the book. You're immersed in that story. You're immersed in it. And the Charlotte Mason philosophy says, okay, now let's invite you into this conversation. And this is maybe another part of our conversation where narration is held so closely woven into this living book idea. So you read a book and then you ask the child, what did you hear? What did you think? How did you feel? And then the knowledge becomes theirs. So living books they're page turners. They're They're the kind of story that you can read a couple of pages, immediately turn to a friend or a parent and tell them what you heard. Then more common than not, they're written by one passionate author, which is hopefully what I brought to my biographies when I wrote those as well.
Yes.
And they are knowledgeable. They are written by
Mm.
people who, so if you're reading a book about the Cotswolds in England, hopefully it's written by somebody who's been there, who's understood it, who's smelled the air and seen the trees in autumn and has walked those paths. Um, so living books are really immersive. They are interesting. They are more often than not story driven. I mean, Charlotte Mason, even for travel, she recommended, rather than just sort of looking at field guides and travel guides, she said read a story of somebody who has walked those paths or been there. And there are many modern versions of that. They don't just have to be old, vintage, beautifully smelling books.
Right.
People today are reading them. Sorry, I've probably waffled on for so long there, but that's
No, no.
really, I'm very passionate about, like, that understanding of what a living book is.
I think that's so encouraging too. So I have 2 of your books here. I've just started The Angel
Oh,
Orphan. They're just
thank you.
beautiful, and they're so, like, just, it's such an interesting approach to learning about a real person's life. We
Yeah,
often see it through, your historical textbooks, and like you said, there's a time and place for some of those things, sure, but this is a way I could start reading aloud to my girls before they're even close to being able to read these to themselves and introduce them to these people who are
that's right.
so influential. When I heard about living books through you and through Charlotte Mason, um, it sounded fun. I was like, I can do education if that's gonna be how it is, right? It's a fun way
Right.
to learn. And this is a little bit off topic, but I listen a lot to the Thousand Hours Outside podcast. I know you've been on there a couple of
Yes.
times. She
Yeah.
talks a
I was
lot.
on there yesterday. A new one came out.
Oh, I
So
can't wait
yeah,
to
yeah,
listen. I
yeah.
I saw
Brand
her
new.
posting about you today. Yeah. Oh, I can't
Yeah.
wait to
Bless her.
listen. She's wonderful. And, Ginny
She's
talks a
amazing.
lot about kind of where education is going, especially through this like AI and technological lens. And she talks about how we're coming, or her guests have talked about how we're coming from a knowledge-based economy where it's like the more you know, the better you'll do. The more degrees you have, the more successful you'll be. That's actually kind of going out the window now because AI, we have information and knowledge at our fingertips. We can search anything. So, what is important is empathy, connection,
Yeah.
anything that's human. And I just think what a beautiful approach to Charlotte Mason was lived so long ago, but her philosophy seems so relevant to what kids need today to be successful in an AI world is not how much of a textbook can you memorize, but how much can you connect with people who are different from you? How much human emotion and empathy and
Yeah.
emotional awareness can you bring? And
Yeah.
that just seems to be such a cornerstone of living books and of her kind of philosophy in general.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we can produce content. We can have input output at our fingertips. I'm a fan of technology. I use it to the best of my ability to serve what I want it to do. I'm a fan of AI when used in the right way, and again, to serve what I ask it to do, what my outcome is. But when it comes to formation, human formation, spiritual formation, that no machine can do that. We are responsible for the inner curation and formation of our inner lives, our souls, our minds. And that can only come by connection, by us deeply reading and slowly engaging with ideas. And this is what Charlotte Mason talks about all the time. It's about ideas. And so, I'm reading a book about beauty at the moment. It's my big topic I'm researching. And, I can Google it. I could go into AI and tell me everything this person, this author. But actually, to sit at my lunch break today and read a chapter and then put it down and think about it and tell my dog, because he was the only person, other living thing in her room. I narrated to my puppy, this is what I'm learning from this chapter, because it's
Yeah,
always good to tell somebody.
I love
And
that.
then that knowledge from those half an hour with that book is mine. It becomes mine. And as soon as you start to assimilate that, just like digestion, this is all that Charlotte Mason talks about. As soon as it assimilates in your mind, it begins to weave itself into everything else you know. And I'm thinking of other ideas, and my brain is going, this reminds me of this image and this other thing I read, and it all starts to come together. Now, you know, technology can try to tell me that and give me an information and a download, but there's nothing to compare with the formation of engaging with it yourself. And that it's not just a mental capacity thing, it's an inner working, it's my soul, it's um, deeply knowing this has something to do with me and a part to play. And then we get rid of whatever's not needed, just like with digestion. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that it's so fascinating teaching this and trying to continue to engage with this in a world and a time where everyone wants everything fast. Give me the curriculum for my kids. Just tell me what to tick, tell me what to ask them, tell me what worksheets to do. And, I don't know, and what's the point? Just send them to school.
Right.
And what's the
Right.
point? For me, home education is this fully immersive season of life where we get to walk alongside our children and open up a door to knowledge and say, come on, let's run into this together. And I did that for 2 decades, and it has changed my life forever. And hopefully my children's, and, any offspring that come from them, because we were all in, Erin, all in, all the time. And I didn't take any shortcuts because I knew this time means something really, really important. And we sacrificed financially, we sacrificed our time, probably our relationships in some way, but it's worth it because of the deep work that will matter for eternity. And I went really deep there, didn't I? I could
I'm
see you with
starting to
me.
tear up. I'm starting to tear up because I'm at the
It's so
beginning of that,
true.
you know?
I know you are.
I'm at the beginning of that, and seeing you, and I know I've followed, it's so creepy to say I've followed you for many years. But I've followed your journey, and I see that your children
Yeah.
are now grown. You're kind of on the other side of this, and as someone who's never been homeschooled before, I'm of course new to this. I have these three little girls, 5, 4, and 3 months old, and we are sacrificing financially. We're tipping our
Yeah.
toes into something we don't know about. And you kind of wonder, you second guess yourself at every stage. Is this right? You see the school bus riding around, driving around the neighborhood, and other kids going to school, and engaged in all these things. And I'm sitting, at home with my little girls and my 3 month old on the couch. And I'm like, I hope this is the right thing. But I know in my heart it feels right. And then seeing someone like you who's kind of gone through this, and you look back and it seems like it's the most beautiful part of your life, and it is so hard and so worth it. I always
Absolutely.
joke that, like, I try to do I do things the hardest way instead of working for somebody and getting a steady paycheck. I'm trying to make ends meet in
Yeah.
my own business, and then I thought, "Oh, my business will take off when my kids go to school." Now I'm like, "No, I'm gonna homeschool them."
I
Let's do
love
it the
that.
hard way, but I love doing it it's worth
Mm.
it to do it the hard way, and,
And
and so encouraging.
it's so formative for you. Like, I know I'm
Yeah.
the woman I am today as I turned 50, Erin, this year.
Oh my
And I
gosh.
just feel so rich. I feel so full. And yet we've lived a very simple life, and we've just chosen to do that. My husband does continue to work so hard. We're a very hardworking family, but we all have this deep appreciation about the beauty of life and the simple things. And actually the deep work happens in those moments around the table, sat on the sofa with the books. And, I know it seems so cliche. Like, it goes in a moment, but I can't believe I'm sat here as a 50-year-old, telling you that that season of life I'm wrapping that up. It's changing for me, and I get to invest in mothers now and pour what is good into them. And that's, again, what a rich reward. Um, but you don't shortcut on the parenting. There are no shortcuts to parenting or
S
mothering. And you do all the hard stuff and all the beautiful stuff all in one day. And so you're dealing with the raw nature of your children's character and your own as you're coming up against that. And it's so redemptive. It's so wonderful. But you just have to throw yourself in. I mean, there were days when I was just in tears because of something amazing I was reading with them, or I was just dealing with a really, really hard, it was a hard day with a child that was struggling at heaven. I remember struggling with one particular child, I won't name and shame, but they just, had different kind of way to seeing life. And some days Dave would come home and I would say, I feel like all I've done is kind of fight fires and just stick with this one child and deeply pour into them and try to deal with that whilst keeping the others busy. And I would say a phrase, I would use terms like, I feel like I've got nothing done. And his perspective was so helpful as we were learning together and just saying, well, that sounds like that was your most important work. Like what you poured into that 6-year-old all day through tears and whatever else went on in the house, that sounds like that was your most important work. That was home education. That was the work of God in you, through you, towards her. And little moments like that really, I remember those. They were really hard days, but I didn't give up. And they're the days that a lot of people, you kind of Google places and like, could I just put one in?
Right.
Which one?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
then we would, find that place of healing in the day, get everyone to bed, collapse into bed yourself, and start again the next day. And I love the grand reset button of a new day and perspective and healing and all the that come with a new morning. And you just, light the candle on the table, get the breakfast out, find that stack of books, put the classical music on, and just start again. And it's great. And I grew so much, Erin. I grew in every way, shape, and form, and a lot of that was done, in the quiet place. Um, but it was so rewarding and continues to be. Every time I have a conversation like this, I'm reminded of how wonderful and beautiful that decision was. And you're right at the beginning. One of my favorite things to do is to talk with people who have got a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 1-year-old, because I call it the beautiful beginnings. You really get to set the pace right now for your own heart and for their lives. And that is amazing. I'll be here cheering you on. Don't you worry.
Oh, you're such an angel. I mean, it's so apparent that you have pursued a calling that is just so meant for you, and the way that you've touched so many lives, both directly and indirectly, the women who just read your words, on a screen in the hard moments. I often read your emails while I'm feeding my baby, and it's just like having that little voice of wisdom in your ear while you're sitting there kind of in your own head, and there's so much noise out there, and it's like focusing in on the right voices makes
Mm,
such an impact. And just I spoke with the founder of Solly Baby in my last podcast episode, Elle Rowley, and she talks a lot about motherhood and the journey of motherhood. And she and I were talking about how motherhood is hard, and she's like, but that is the point. Like you're not getting to the end of your life to have done nothing hard. Like that is the point
absolutely
of
not.
life, like
Yeah,
expose the cracks in you and pull out everything that is, kind of buried within, and kids have a way of resurfacing everything inside you. And we you
absolutely.
think you're patient and kind until you have a kid, and
No
but it
way.
is
Yeah.
it is the point. I think that's so beautiful. So just pivoting a little bit, because you've so clearly pursued this calling and you continue to put work out there in the world that is meaningful. You focus so much on your children, you poured into them in your motherhood. And you're also, I think I heard in one of your episodes with Jenny, you talked about how you had Modern Miss Mason, the book, on your heart for a long time before you wrote it, because you kind of wanted to like see on the other side with your children before you wrote it. Um, but what would you say to, there's so many moms out there who motherhood brings out creativity. They find these things they're passionate about. And while we have limited time and energy as moms to pursue these creative callings, they're still there. So how do you balance pursuing, maybe those quiet callings within you as a mother, of creativity, of maybe starting some sort of entrepreneurial pursuit. You've sort of done a little bit of this over the or a lot of this over the course of your motherhood journey at different stages. So what does that look like? And how do you balance it all if there's a I know there's no such thing.
So yeah, I have many thoughts on this, and I'm very passionate about it. And I think I may have said it in Modern Mason. You know, your callings are not cut with the umbilical cord in the kind of the room when your baby first comes into the world. And like everything stops now. You are a mother. You will not be passionate about these things again. That's not the case. Women are incredible. Women are. I love being around young adult women who are just so they're fresh in the world of maybe work or studying or relationships, and they are learning so much about themselves. They've got ideas. They have got, I especially love the entrepreneurial spirit. It's just incredible. And we encourage that in our children. And my girls are very much like that. They're leaders. We're raising leaders. And we know that Dave and I have just kind of sown that in. Sometimes we apologize, like, we're so sorry that you can't do anything because you just have to lead. Like,
Yeah,
you just got to lead it. So I
love
think
that.
that motherhood doesn't dampen that. It doesn't change that. What it does, it helps bring perspective over timing and seasons. And I think you have to learn to prioritize your energy. And when you're nursing a baby, or you might have a toddler, and you've still got all these amazing ideas, it can feel like frustration. And I think one of the things that the first thing I'd say is, if you're a young mum and you're feeling that, you definitely have to learn how to manage frustration. And it's finding ways to channel that to start off with. So always writing things down, whether it's analog or digitally, just writing down your thoughts, even if it's like you've got babies breastfeeding and you've got an Apple note open and you're like, these are the things I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
I mean, I am a morning person. Dave always thinks it's crazy because I'll be like, I've had this amazing idea, and I'll have this business idea at 6 in the morning. And he's like, can you just wait a minute? Just like, can I just drink a coffee? But that's what I was like when I had babies. And toddlers like, I think we should
Yeah.
start this. And I would start a coffee
So
morning for mothers. But you have to weigh everything in. You have to this perspective of, what is my energy like? What is the reality of my time? How much can I give to this? It's like it's also the same, I think, just speaking into the woman, thinking about our cycles, the cyclical nature of our hormones, that we have these brilliant ideas, don't we, when we're ovulating, like everything's amazing and I'm going to take on the world. And then, a week or two later, you're just like in a blanket in bed going, I don't want to do a thing. And so
yeah.
it's actually learning about your body, learning about yourself, learning about your season. So if you are a young mum, it doesn't mean your brain's not going to be firing in all cylinders. Just write everything down. Talk to a girlfriend about it. Like, have those conversations. Don't try and start major projects and businesses when you've got a tiny baby and a toddler. You might think you can, but just take time. I always remember Brené Brown. I used to devour her books when I was a young mum, actually. And I remember her talking about getting this. She got a ring. It was like a ring within a ring. And she would, whenever someone asked her to make a decision, she made a point. She always used to say yes because she was a people pleaser. And she learned to wear this ring, and she would twist it round 2 or 3 times to stop her brain from saying yes. And
I love
she
that.
would teach herself kind of this response of saying, hey, I'm going to get back to you, or let me think about that, or I'll text you tomorrow, I'll call you tomorrow. And I thought, how interesting, because I'm very much like, say yes and figure it out later. And I had to stop doing that. So first thing is just get some perspective on the season you're in, and but write down everything you're feeling and definitely process it with a girlfriend. I have a great friend who's got lots of children and busy like me, and we just talk about our business ideas all the time. One or two will land occasionally, but we just
Right,
talk.
yeah.
Um, I think another thing as well is no, yeah, to knowing the timing is so important. I think that starting small and building. And not everything lands and falls on your Instagram following, or your Instagram interaction. I think so much now people will have an idea and the first thing they do is buy a domain name and find an Instagram account and
Yeah.
then start putting stuff on there. But I think it starts, businesses and books and projects start in the small formation in the quiet place. It starts in the deep research and the writing it down and the holding it quietly and sharing it with maybe one best friend and letting it grow in you and grow in you. Because so many things I've seen, so many young women, they've contacted me. I want to start this, and I'll talk. Try to bring a bit of wisdom and advice, and they'll start it as if it's going to be huge, and it just bombs because they haven't built it in the quiet place. They haven't built it over time and just save it, just like simmering a really good soup or a good stew or a roast in the oven. It takes time to produce something beautiful and something lasting. So I think now we want it. We want it tomorrow. We want to put a video up on Instagram and we get 1 million views. It doesn't work. It doesn't happen. So let things savor, let things sink in. And there's no greater time than young motherhood to really, like, when you can, nap time, half an hour before you go to bed, just read a bit more, work on it a bit more. Because if you just wait and build it in the quiet place, when it is time to, present it, to produce it, it will flourish. And I think that's really important. I'll let you speak into that for a minute because I could be talking all day. What do you think about that?
If I could, I'm like, I could listen to you all day. How long do you have? No, that's such, it's, it's the advice you don't hear. It's the advice you don't
Right.
hear that you just gave. It is that we live in a culture of urgency and you start to feel
Yes.
that like immediacy. And I notice with each baby that I've had, something new has been unlocked in me. And I
Oh, I'm
start to
sure.
like want, you start seeing things differently, you pursue these creative callings within you, but in a way that's so different than before. Like, I know that
Hmm.
my time is so limited. And I remember with my first
Yes.
baby, it was the biggest wake up call that, like, wow, my time really isn't my own. I'm sitting down to a computer writing a blog post, and she wakes up from a nap, and I'm like, but I'm not done
I
yet.
know. I know.
No, you have to stop and you
You
have to
have to
switch. And
stop.
I'm now able to do that, and I've slowed down so much to where I'm just doing the little bit that I can and being okay with that instead of it being,
Great.
no, this thing needs to be built now or grow now. And kind of where I got this name Built from Love is like we're building things in our lives, we're building our businesses, we're building our babies and our families from a place of love. And what does that look like? It's not rushed,
Mm,
And
not
so when
at
you were
all.
talking, it's like you're almost planting the seeds of your callings in early motherhood. And as your children
Right.
grow, so too does your work. And you will
Mm,
eventually, at your stage now, probably have more dedicated time and brain space to put to these callings as they need less of you physically, maybe more of you emotionally, I would imagine, as
yeah.
they get older.
That's exactly true. Yeah, that is true.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that I thought about the image of a British cathedral, an English cathedral, and they were built over hundreds of years, and yet they're still here today.
they're
They
strong.
stood, that they're strong, they stood the test of time. They're still beautiful, they're still honored, they're here, and they have legacy. And I think so. We want everything so fast. We want everything built overnight. We want to be a success because that's what we see, all these influencer women and they look glamorous and they've got their babies and they've got it all together. And we have no clue behind the scenes. We do not know anything apart from what we see on the front. I don't want to be that woman. And I don't want to if I'm mentoring or sewing into mothers, I'm never going to point to that as an example. I'm going to like switch it off, take Instagram off your phone, build this in the quiet place. Like, what does this actually look like? Like, it's like taking a chisel to something, like just a little bit in the nap time, a little bit
Yeah,
when you've got some energy, 10 minutes, a little bit. You've got a babysitter for an hour, go for a coffee and just do a little bit more. But do not grumble and begrudge the time when your kids are going, I actually need you now. I remember getting up
yeah,
early, and I'd be sat reading and trying to study or whatever I was doing. And then thinking, I've got oh, I've made it. I've got up really early. And then a baby would cry. And I do remember for a while just feeling that they're they're kind of disrupting my time. And I had to break that kind of mindset and that way of thinking really, really quickly, because that is not healthy and it was not helpful. And so I learned to just, I remember my youngest, my fourth, just scooping her up, and, she breastfed for a little bit longer than the others. She'd just stick her on the,
Yeah, yeah,
get her feeding. And I just
yeah,
would put my feet up and have my books there, and her
yeah,
little hand would be on my book or whatever. And I just thought, okay, we'll do this together. We're going to do this together.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I did not enter into the publishing world until I was in my late 40s. I did not
Yeah,
publish a book till I was in my late 40s.
yeah,
And I've always written, it's not been like this high priority for me, but I always wanted,
sure.
I love communication and I love facilitation. So those
Mm,
two things I knew would come out in me in some way, shape, or form. So I would run online groups, or I'd arrange retreats as the kids got older and do little things
mm,
like that. But it was all, and yes, I felt frustrated sometimes. Yes, I'd see my peers going far and play, and their kids would be in school and they were like
yeah,
building their careers and being hugely successful and making all this money. And we were counting every penny.
right.
But I don't regret a thing. Honestly, I don't, because I sat with those babies. I got up with them in the early hours and I would read my Kindle and just what I know now, Erin, is that all the tiny things that I fed into myself in those years are the fruit of what I'm able to do now and what is coming out in me now, because I did store up in the mind gallery. I did store up in my heart beautiful things and treasured things that I am really seeing the fruit of now. So I know not everyone will find that easy to hear, because they're like, I want to do well now. I want to, you know, but I was, I was doing video stuff. I was doing some podcasting. And as my children hit different stages where I thought, I've got a little bit of margin here. So I don't know, again, if your demographic are old enough to remember Periscope, but the first live video platform launched as my kids all kind of napped or rested at the same time. So I started something called the Charlotte Mason Show, and I would come on during nap time 2 days a week. And I started to talk to people about the Charlotte Mason philosophy on a live video. And I just was like, well, if they wake up, they wake up. But otherwise, I'll talk to you for 20 minutes. And so
Yeah.
that's where I met people like Julie Bogart and various others. We just started to kind of get our faces out there. And that was during nap times. Yeah.
It's like everything, it's so clear now looking back, I'm sure the journey that led you to where you are today. And you are so
Yeah.
right. You couldn't be guiding mothers if you weren't there for your motherhood,
No.
because what are you guiding them to, like you had
Right.
to have that experience, but you were still dipping your toes. And I heard this quote from somewhere. It's like everything before 40 is experimentation. Like life doesn't start
Absolutely.
until you're 40 or something like that. And I'm about 5 years away from that, and that's kind of how I feel. I'm like tiptoeing into business and learning from women who are more, like, have more wisdom to share, have been a bit further along the journey than I have. And just like kind of soaking in all that knowledge now, and like the
Great.
success, whatever that looks like, that will come later. This is my time to still save space for these creative callings, and but focus on what's the most important is the children in these early years. And I kind of flipped the script too, similar to you. I'm like breastfeeding exclusively my 3-month-old, and
Yeah.
so I'm doing stuff around the house, but every two
Yeah.
hours or so, I'm pulled back to the sofa. And
Absolutely.
that can be really jarring, but she's my third baby now, so I have the perspective, and I know she's my last. So I really
Yeah.
have the perspective, and I'm like, this is my breather now. Like I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna stop doing the laundry, I'm gonna stop cleaning, I'm gonna stop, doing this work. I'm gonna sit down and just be with her. And how beautiful to have that forced break of
Oh,
rest,
it's amazing. It's in
versus
this
looking at the other
beautiful,
way.
natural way to make mothers sit down. Yeah. You
Yeah.
have to rest. And
Yeah, you have to.
that letdown reflex when you just kind of go, oh,
Yeah.
I still remember that with fondness. Like, oh, it's such a lovely,
Aw.
just, yeah,
There's
I love
head
it.
on your
It's great.
chest and everything.
I
Oh,
know.
Leah, I could talk to you forever. I know we're coming to the end of our time, so I want to give you some time to talk a little bit about your Mind Gallery membership for
Thank you.
women and any other projects that are lighting you up right now. I know you talked that you're researching a lot about beauty. I'd love to hear more about both those things.
Yeah, I mean, everything at the moment. I've shifted from the my membership. I've run memberships online for I want to say 15 years. In some way, shape, or form, I just love gathering. I love facilitation. I love to help and serve where I can. And so that's how it's looked in the with home educators all over the world. But landing on the Substack platform just has felt like this huge open door for me. I'm like, oh, here's my people. This is so wonderful. So kind of brought everyone with me, like, come on, let's go over here. So I've been running something called the Collective for a couple of years, which is it's a common name. I didn't realize how popular it was. Um, and my focus really was to pour into home educators, mothers, through book clubs and workshops and guest interviews, all that kind of stuff. I'm shifting slightly from my focus on, I've been teaching the Charlotte Mason philosophy for, it must be 12, 13 years now. And I've done years and years of workshops. I've written a book. I've spoken at conferences. I've done that, and I feel like I've got so much out there that I can keep sharing the same stuff with people.
Yeah.
But I've said, now, okay, I'm gonna start to pivot from that. I'm not actually going to teach any fresh things on that platform about the Charlotte Mason philosophy. Her ideas will be woven into everything I do, of course.
Yeah.
And there are certain things that I'm just like shifting and changing. And what I felt as we come into 2026, hence the name change, the Mind Gallery, is that I really want to focus on how do we fuel and fill and equip our inner lives, our minds and our souls. And I'm very inspired with Charlotte Mason's notion of children having this mind gallery, which they fill from living books and resources and narrations. But obviously, we're just big children, aren't we? It never
Yeah.
stops. And
Yeah.
so I'm really interested and in looking at together, um, if we just spend a little bit of time in our days and our weeks looking at beauty through art, music, poetry, literature, nature, how will that impact our mothering? How will that impact our life as a woman? And how do we face hard things? Kind of difference does that make to us? I wrote a little bit about this in the third section of Modern Miss Mason, which is about creating soul space. And
Yeah.
so I'm drawing on that because I feel like I'm at that season of life that I can begin to kind of mentor and pour into that younger mothers. And also, I'm just really interested in the impact of beauty on a mother's life. And so I thought, well, why not do this journey together? And it has been an amazing response. The community is growing. We're doing an Advent thing over December. So for 24 days, I'll be sending people just a piece of a few lines from a poem, a piece of art, some music. And all they have to do is look at it and listen to it. There's no narrative or kind of homework from me. And I'm just kind of getting us into this
Mm.
place of let's start to absorb this intentionally and see what it does to our lives. And I'm excited. I'm excited about it. So it's all, I mean, I have a wider Substack community, email list, whatever, and people do get articles and I write for that. And then we've got this crew, this inner crowd who obviously pay a few dollars a month to be a part of that, which is a huge blessing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I do stuff every week on there. So we do
Amazing.
a digital co-working space on a Friday. We do book clubs, we do
Oh, how
guest
fun.
interviews. So yeah, great fun.
Oh
But
my
thank you for
gosh.
asking.
Can people just continually enjoy like join it as they
All the
come
time.
across it? Okay.
Yeah, it's open all year
Okay.
round. So people can come and try it for a month and or they can sign up for a year. But yeah, there's always something
Yeah.
happening. And I'd love to connect with people over there. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. And what a beautiful gift to also I'm always looking for unique gifts to give like to a
Yes.
mother or a
Yes,
friend.
you
You
can
know, that would be such
gift. Yeah.
a beautiful thing to do. So I'll have to look into joining that because I'm really excited about that and just cutting through the noise that's out there and using technology in a way that is soul
Right.
giving and fuels you. It's yeah, there's just a need for that community, I think, really for people and especially
Definitely.
mothers. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, Leah, thank you so much. As I always say, I'm like, I could just talk to you forever. I just truly appreciate your wisdom. It feels like you just spoke to my soul so much. I feel like I just had a coaching session with you, but I know so many moms will get so much from this conversation. And thank you for all you're doing to just lift mothers up in these, especially these early and middle years of motherhood, that can feel confusing. And you are just a guiding light, like an angel for us as moms. So thank you for the work you're putting into us and for chatting with me today.
Well, thank you for inviting me in. I hope it's been a helpful conversation.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much, Leah.